In Pratyahara, there is an awareness of all the sounds around and all, right?
See, there are different kinds of dhyana. So one dhyana is to actually let all your senses awaken. Okay, there are other dhyanas, so many varieties of dhyana, yeah? In fact, paying attention to your asana practice is a form of dhyana at one level.
No, at Pratyahara,
Yeah.
is there an awareness of the sound around and things like that? Or it's like so you get so engrossed in the dharana that you don't,
Yeah,
you're not aware anymore?
You will only see and hear totally what is relevant. Right? You might hear the rest of it, but you will not be distracted. Your mind will not go anywhere.
Actually, I wanted to discuss with Raghu, and Raghu told me to share with all of us, all of you. And this is the incident which happened to me around 10 days before. I was going through some sort of discomfort, and then I was feeling that I am completely in comfort zone. There is no responsibility, no risk, nothing. And somehow on the last Monday when Bharat Bandh was there, somehow in the morning I woke up and I decided to do something challenging. And somehow I was knowing that there is a risk because I have to travel near about 31 kilometers by car. There is a risk. But I don't know what happened at particular moment. I decided to take that risk apart from whatever happens. So at that time I felt that whether I'm just moving away from the fear, or I'm doing something nonsense, or it's some sort of suicideness, because I know that there is a risk, definitely something can happen to me. And I drove my vehicle to the fastest, what is the best, around 130-35 kilometers. And then something different was there for that particular day completely with me. So I was disturbed in that sense, and then just wanted to link it where I was in this complete
Very
scenario.
simple. When you face intense danger, all your senses wake up. That's why a lot of people, when they need to have a tremendously spiritual experience, go mountain climbing. Mountain climbing and things like that. It's your senses just wake up, man. You better hold this carefully, and you better let every muscle speak to you, otherwise you're going to slip and fall. So experiencing danger, if you're a very physical person, then experiencing this kind of danger actually gets you into a certain state of dhyana. I'm going to tell you a story, and after I tell you a story, you people are going to work. Okay? The story goes like this. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there was this aspiring yogi who was sitting under a tree and meditating. And when he was meditating, which means in the classical posture with his eyes closed and making sure that his prana went through the 7 realms and up and down and all that kind of a thing, 2 krauncha pakshis, 2 cranes, decided to come and make love in a tree nearby. And as you all know, cranes make love with tremendous celebration and noise.
Gay abandon.
With gay abandon. I don't think gay abandon, but anyway, abandon of a sort. They don't go into gay abandon. But what happened therefore was, our yogi who was in meditation got extremely angry. And he looked up at the cranes, and they just burnt and fell down in ashes. So this guy was so thrilled, I have arrived. And he took his begging bowl and went into the nearby village where he always went to beg, and said, Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi. And the woman of the house didn't come out immediately like she usually does and offer things to the mendicants. She took a little time to come. And when she took a little time and she came in, this guy looked at her and she said, Kokkena Kandayo Konganava. She said, "Hey, ascetic, did you think I'm one of those cranes?" So this guy immediately got extremely humble and all that kind of thing and said, "How do you know?" So she said, "Go and ask the butcher down the road. My husband is ill, I had to tend to him. My child was crying, I had to give him milk before I came to give you your alms. But in any case, if you want to find out how I know, go and ask the butcher down the road." So our mendicant, slightly humbled, walked down the road. And as soon as he came to the butcher's place, the butcher said, "Ah, you're the fool who got those cranes burnt. And the woman told you to come and see me. Sit down here and wait." So he waits there till the butcher finishes his stuff and says, "Okay, if you really want to learn yoga, come with me." Okay? Now, there are a couple of things for us to remember. One is, each culture has certain people who are considered its hero figures. Yeah, the West considers Hercules its hero figure. So if you read any Western mythology book and all that, you'll find that about the ratio is usually 1:40. If there's one page on Zeus, who is the father of all the gods, there'll be 40 pages on Hercules. And everybody else will get less space than this. That's their archetypal hero. The Chinese, if you look at their pictures, okay, it's that lonely figure in a huge mountain landscape, all alone. He is Hyun Tsang with the Tripitaka, going back.
7 hermits actually. They celebrate
Sometimes it's 7 hermits, but usually this lonely person with a stick in his hand. What you don't know is that he knows Kung Fu, which is why he's so happy with just a stick in his hand. And Bodhidharma went from Kanjivaram all the way to teach this 36 chambers of Shaolin and all that. So that's the figure. Okay, it's a Taoist figure. It's this seeker, lonely seeker in this mountain thing, who has great strength inside, but very calm demeanor and all. That's the hero. The hero in the Indian context is the householder. So when there is doubts among the so-called rishis, they'll have to go to a Janaka to find out what is right and what is wrong. The Janaka is a king, and he is the householder with the maximum amount of power to corrupt himself and others. And yet, he lives like a yogi, which is why he is a Janaka. Yeah, when Shankara has this dialogue, the householder, the woman, the Saraswati comes and says, "You're not speaking the truth, you better figure out all this and then come back to me." Yeah? One of the things that seems to have happened over the years is the simplicity with which one can understand and experience meditation and meditative practices for ourselves have been usurped. Okay? So rather than recognize that my mind is capable of meditation, you're told that unless you study in ABC way, you can't meditate. That meditation is a very special thing. So we were just talking about it. So whenever I use the word meditation, I'm quite certain in your minds you see this Buddha figure sitting like this. Yeah? I don't think that's true at all. Okay? And there's actually a text which contains 112 statements, which comes at the end of an English book called Zen Bones, Zen Flesh. Yeah? Where it talks about Shiva and Parvati having a conversation. which says, when can meditation happen is the question. I think Shakti asks Shiva something like this. So he goes on to say, when you take a morsel of food, there can be meditation. When you eat it and taste it, there can be meditation. And it goes on like that. So when you kiss, it can be a kiss of meditation. And so there are 112 or 116, which simply means thousands of possibilities of getting into a meditative state. Yeah, so I think it's important for us to recognize the state and to be able to recreate it for ourselves so that we know how to deal with many of these things that are happening to us. Yeah. So we've talked about all these practices and all that through the day. Most of these are practices that prepare you to be able to meditate, which is every day when I say hello to somebody, is my thought, feeling and action integrated? If they are, then I can tell my boss, Kokkana Kandayo Konganava. Every time he looks at me and stares at me, I can tell him, what do you think, man? You think I'm that crane you can burn off? Yeah, you'll have sense, you'll be sensitive, you'll be able to understand, etc., etc. Okay? So what we'd like you to do is, we'd like you to form small groups around so-called process workers. Yeah? And like we did yesterday, can you do two things? One, we talked about small events yesterday. One of the things you can do is to look at a slightly larger thing today. We talked about the feeling and how to integrate with the feeling. Can you also look at the feeling and see what is creating this feeling? Yeah? Which is one of the things we talked about, right? The most important sutra that I spoke about today is that one that says, Hetu phala ashraya alambanaihi sangrahi tatvat tesham abhave tat abhavaha, which is there is a cause effect that's happening all the time, and then this cause effect gets caught with raga dvesha, and therefore I create an asmita, a sense of self around myself, and then I start defending this sense of self. That is the ashraya. The alambana are assumptions about myself, about the world, and all of this that I create in order that this structure remain permanent. Yeah? Yesterday we worked only with the hetupala. If something is triggering off some feeling in me, can I stop getting caught with the reactivity there, drop it, and be able to own up my feelings to myself? Yeah? Can I start looking at where this feeling is coming from? How am I protecting a certain set of interactions in myself? How am I protecting a certain idea of myself? Okay? You had a feeling yesterday. What is the feeling? Of how this guy is very oppressive. Indifferent. And then you said I was able to deal with this indifference, whatever. Right? Now that you've become little familiar and little easy about looking at this indifference without reactivity and saying Gagan is so-and-so, which might be true, but doesn't matter. Yeah? It's saying it's my indifference now. It's got nothing to do with the guy who triggered it off. Now, can you now look and say, where is this idea of indifference and hurt around indifference coming from? That is what is feeding this. How am I protecting this indifference? Or whoever is this?
Accepted, not rejected.
So whatever, right? So can you very quietly look at this and try and see slightly more than just this feeling which is mine? Okay? So just spend 10 minutes doing that and share it in the group. Now, everything that you do is part of the meditative practice. Okay? Being able to do this and look at it for yourself is dhyana. Listening to somebody when they speak is trying to understand how I can be a vitaraga vishayam in my listening. That's a meditative practice. And if in the process you can get a picture of what is happening and embrace that picture, that is also part of meditative practice. Okay? And it's meditative practice, especially if you do all of this without sitting in Padmasana and whatever. Okay? Is my instruction clear, sir?
I think the fear that I got really working with today, the whole day, has been fear of accusations. And when Darshak spoke and he spoke, I experienced it as a very deep accusation. And I was exactly like you. I was a very timid, gentle young boy. And my father used to just raise his voice and I used to just weep. It was almost like saying, why are you shouting at me? What have I done? And so the psychodrama that I have is that while I sometimes exhibit an extremely tough exterior, I have a very big fear of accusations. Accusations of being let down, accusations of being deserted, somebody saying abandonment. These are other accusations I can name. Being, harsh, I can still manage, not a problem. But an emotional accusation of being let down becomes a very difficult accusation for me. I suddenly become like a stone. I've been really asking myself, where has this bubble come from? Where has this seed come from? And partly I know that I know that my mother got in this accusation because she couldn't handle her mother, my grandmother, well. And so every time my grandmother would accuse my mother would fall into tears. And so her way of confronting me was these emotional accusations. So my dad I could handle. My dad would say, ye nahi hota, I would say, all right. But my mother, so I became a very sole support of my mother. I think in her early years of marriage, I was the only support for her. But as we grow, I also found various things. So one of her accusations, which I've always held to the heart like a knife, is of a letdown, of a desertion, and it's been with me. And every time I hear the same genre of accusations, I get extremely angry with myself. I get extremely guilty of myself. I just don't know what have I done. I'm so scared of hurting people, especially the so-called gentle people. I get extremely. I just want to run. It's a very painful thing. And so the whole of day, I just sat there and I looked at my psychodrama of where I was a national level athlete. I was a boxer and I was very good at athletics. Not now anymore. So while I could do all the stuff which I could do, but any tender accusation would just tear me apart. And so I also inflict violence on myself. So if my children are doing something and if they accuse me, and which I think is a weapon my wife is using very well unconsciously. So my son actually came and said, why you travel because you don't like us? And I just sat in front of him and I wept. And I realized, shit man, what am I doing with my children here? And I asked him, where did you get this? So I'm right now receiving many accusations of a very different kind, and I get torn as to know what to do with accusations. So it's like damned if I do and damned if I don't. If I don't travel, there'll be no bread at home. My job is a roaming consultant. So there's something that I have picked up from my mother or from my early childhood. There's some psychodrama of accusation which makes me feel extremely angry with myself. and my stomach just knots up. Just knot up my stomach. I think today was the first time I got in touch with my mother's accusation psychodrama. So I'm not saying I'm blaming everything on my mother, but now I'm at least aware that that's how she brought me up. Because she never confronted me directly, but she would give me that very accusing, hurt look, and then if I wasn't studying, I would be studying. I think the other part is that I think in my life, I've been an oppressor at times. I've had a very violent childhood. I've seen, including social violence and 84 riots, and we just escaped our lives. I've seen huge violence everywhere. So I'm very much in touch with this fear of being accused, and very touch about what's the nature of psychodrama. So there's a part of me which sobs like a child, saying, "How can you accuse me? I never intended anything." And there's a part of me which says, "I'm going to protect this child no matter what. You accuse me, screw you. What can you do to me?" There's a third part of me which is saying how much energy it takes away. And I'm just in touch with how much energy it takes away. It just takes a lot of energy. It's taken me some time to even engage with it.
Two people in my circle, my father and my elder sister. For 7 years after my marriage, I held an extreme anger for them, primarily for not accepting the girl whom I had chosen as my wife. And several incidences in those 7 years after my marriage, which caused extreme pain to me personally, for my wanting to make that equation work, for wanting my wife to be accepted in the family. Every time I would kind of create an encounter, bringing them together would only separate all of us miles apart. No idea what was working then. My actual rational thinking had stopped. And I was causing tremendous pain for myself. And this is something happened to me. In fact, my son was born in that period, my only child. Even on his birth, there was nobody around. My mother-in-law had passed away 2 years before my son had born. So in the hospital, my wife was giving birth, and I was the only one outside. Phenomenal amount of joy and phenomenal amount of pain at the same time. And that then went on. He was born 4 years after our marriage, and the pain went on for another 3 years thereafter. And actually, that time, I went into a phenomenal mode of reflection as to what is it that is happening to me? Why is it happening to me? Who is doing it to me? Now that I have a language called trigger, where my father and my elder sister, the trigger for all that is happening to me. And this contemplative questions continued for me for weeks, maybe a couple of months, I do not know. My wife had no clue about all this. I never shared this with her. She was anyway undergoing her own pain. In that 7 years, God knows how many times she would have told me, you made a mistake marrying me. You messed up your life. I have messed up your life. A phenomenal amount of guilt that she was having all through that 7 years. So there was another pain that I was experiencing from my wife's side. And I let these contemplative questions remain with me without bothering to take any efforts to find answers, because these questions happened to me. And in those weeks, all I was saying to myself was, if these questions have happened to me, I am sure the answers will also happen to me. And I am not interested in finding the answers, because I am not the one who raised those questions. It has happened to me. I don't know. This was the dialogue that was going on within me with those questions. And out of the blue, while I was wide awake, I distinctly remember it was raining just like this. I was watching outside my balcony window. We have a beautiful trees outside my balcony, and we were just watching it. And I saw an image of I beating myself all the time. Sticking with a stick and hitting myself. And actually, at the end, I laughed. What an idiot am I, is what I said. I remember this was 1997, I distinctly remember even now. 90s when I got married. And I said, I am the one who's causing pain to myself. Why am I so hell-bent in getting the equation within my family to get sorted out? If they're going to get sorted out, they will. If they are not going to sort it out, let them not be. And I actually, in my mind, said sorry to my father and my sister. Sorry for holding you responsible for all that I have gone through in this service. And boom, suffering ended then. And the entire anger that I had for my father and my sister, I could experience completely getting transformed to compassion. For my father, for my elder sister. Incidentally, I haven't met my father for the last 7 years. I haven't met my sister for the last 16 years. So in a way, I don't know, I'm just trying to now use injunctive language here. I'm sorry for this, but in the act of freeing them, I probably freed myself. Now what happened to me was my life became phenomenally calm. So much so that I was involved in 2 startup ventures in software thereafter, over 9 years. The first one made phenomenal money for myself and for everybody. And the second one lost everything that I had gained. But in those 9 years, all the money that I made and all the money that I lost neither caused me any pain nor joy. Joy in the sense, okay, I have made a few crores. That was the horrendous amount of money that I had made. And I lost everything also in the next venture for various reasons. So somehow, I am not using the word indifference here. I feel pain. That has been a part of me. I mean, this pain that was with me for 7 years and the suffering got decoupled for me. Pain is still there. That my father and sister and my wife is still not kind of... I haven't met my sister for 16 years. The emotion that I'm dealing with at the moment is compassion. Now, in this exercise, I'm asking myself, where is this compassion or love? And whilst I was kind of thinking through the last 10 minutes, a personal need of wanting to remain calm at any points in time is probably what I heard within me, which is making me experience this compassion at the moment or whatever.
So I think there are many feelings regarding my mother. You know, there is anger, there's resentment, I feel helpless, there's disgust, despair and burdened. These are the feelings I have about her. And if I have to drop her and then embrace these feelings and see what's behind these feelings, I can only see strong hatred and a craving for the kind of mother I want. I'm not able to, that is what I'm getting, like, you know. Beyond that, I'm blank at this moment. I think for me, with my mother, I'm not able to actively see what I want, like love or approval from her. It's more like whether I approve and it's that one way, you know, and there's a lot of rage. To the extent when I meditate sometimes, you know, I almost feel as if I'm shaking her hard, like against the wall, like, you know, it's that kind of rage. And a feeling behind that, not able to, you know, and I'm like, I think there's a combination, like a paradox of rage and compassion. And I'm just not still very clear as to what is underneath. There is definitely a craving. I'm not able to put my finger on craving for what. I don't know if it's for love or whether it is being taken care of.
1 minute.
I think it's a deep this thing of being looked after, being taken care of.
Just tell me, if I were your mother, what would you tell me? What am I not doing?
That I want you to be a mother to me.
The mother is around now, what will you do with it?
Many times I think why I can't hug her. Why? I just feel it's been ages since I even felt need to be with her or to experience her as a mother. I only experience like I'm trying to be a mother to her. Since trying to look after her. I just
Do you want to hug her now? Do you feel like hugging her now? Okay.
You want to be hugged more than right? You want her to be...
I somehow don't like her also touching me. When she tries to hug me, I don't.
I'm exactly like that. My mother tries to touch me, I don't like her touching me.
Probably at this moment, yeah, I would hug her.
You want to do that?
Yes, boss. Let's stand up. Do it in your mind. Like close your eyes.